A relationship with the right referral partner could be a game changer for any B2B company. So what if you could reverse engineer these relationships at a moment's notice? Start a podcast, invite potential referral partners to be guests on your show, and grow your referral network faster than ever. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show. Welcome back to another episode of B2B Growth. It is Logan and I here again today. We're going to be talking about a post that I wrote yesterday, actually, about engagement on LinkedIn. And so I'll give a little bit of context. So there's this guy named Coca Sexton. He runs content at Slack. He was at LinkedIn. He's got a really great personal brand. And one of the things that he always says is that visibility leads to opportunity. Now, this seems like common sense. Of course, visibility leads to opportunity. But for whatever reason, it just really resonated with me that like, if you can be more visible, you're going to get like more good things are going to happen to you. And as marketers and as sales folks, we're always trying to figure out like, how do we get that visibility? Like, how do we become seen more? Mark Schaefer wrote an entire book called Known. Like, we all want to be known. We all want to have that visibility. One of the ways that we figured out at Sweetfish to get that visibility is to capitalize on LinkedIn's algorithm by writing content in the form of long form status updates natively inside of LinkedIn. So I've told this story a gajillion times, but I'll say it again just for context here. When when I was just spending 5 minutes a month on Buffer loading up articles that I thought were interesting on the LinkedIn, I was getting 100 to 200 views per post. We were getting really no inbound leads on LinkedIn whatsoever because I was putting in 5 minutes of effort. As soon as I started writing native long form LinkedIn status updates, following best practices like intriguing opening sentence, putting links in the first comment instead of in the actual post itself, and engaging with everybody that commented on the post, my stuff started getting upwards of, 10 to 20,000 views per post. I had posts that got over 100,000 views, and we're getting now enormous deal flow from LinkedIn. One of the, we're talking to a Fortune 500 company. We've closed a Fortune 100 company, all coming through, or being deeply influenced by LinkedIn. That being said, creating content is obviously one way to get visibility. But there is another way to get visibility that I want to talk with you, Logan, about, which is something that we've started going really, just doing a lot, probably the last 8 or 9 months, is engaging with other people's content. And the thing that I think that a lot of our listeners probably don't understand about how the LinkedIn algorithm works is that when you comment on someone's post, maybe you're augmenting your own content creation, like we are, like we're already creating content. We want to comment on other people's posts to just add even more visibility. But when you comment, it shows up in your first degree connections feeds, like Logan Lyles, left a
commented
comment
on. Yeah, exactly.
On Dale Dupree's post. So it shows Dale Dupree's posts. But if I'm not connected to Dale, but I am connected to Logan leaves a comment, I now see Dale's post, even though I'm not connected to him. So it's giving exposure to somebody outside of my immediate network's content. So which is great for Dale in this scenario, but it's also great for Logan because the prospect that Logan is currently talking to about, our podcast service or a strategic relationship he's trying to build. Maybe he just recently connected with them on LinkedIn. They now see Logan's comment directly below Dale's post. Now, if you're listening to this and you follow Dale Dupree, you know that guy gets massive engagement on his LinkedIn stuff. And so even if there are 60 comments on Dale's post, it doesn't matter, because if my connection is Logan, then I see Logan's comment. So I don't have to filter through 60 comments. LinkedIn natively, with the way the UI and the algorithm is working today. Now, obviously this could change tomorrow, but it shows Dale's post and then it shows Logan's comment, regardless of the number of comments.
Right. And at the top of it says Logan commented on this. So I'm showing up in their feed without creating content.
And it shows your headline. This is something that String actually commented on yesterday.
Point on this. Yeah.
Yeah. So String, somebody that we engage with a lot, she does a lot of LinkedIn video. She said that's why the headline is so important, because your LinkedIn headline shows up in people's feeds whenever you comment on something. So Logan and I have put a lot of thought into what the headline needs to be for our profiles. And we produce podcasts for B2B brands. It's very tight. It's concise. It spells out exactly what we do. It's not cute or fancy. And because of that, every time we leave a comment on somebody's post, it's showing up in our first degree networks that we left a comment, and it's showing our headline. So that type of visibility, when you combine it with creating your own content, is phenomenal. But if you're at a place where you don't even want to start creating content yet, maybe you're a salesperson strapped for time, or you're a marketer strapped for time. Like if you are strapped for time and you don't want to, I would argue that you need to make the time to create content, because it is that beneficial. But for whatever reason, maybe you're gun shy, you don't know exactly what to talk about yet, start leaving comments on other people's content, because that will give you incredible visibility. Probably not as much as you would get if you were creating your own content, but it's definitely a way to dip your toe in the water. All of that being said, we were kind of talking offline, Logan, about trolls. If you're listening to this and you like to troll on people's content, know that those hateful comments that you're leaving, one, it's essentially you sharing that content that you're spewing hate all over to your first degree connections, because
it's having the opposite effect that you really want it to have. Exactly. It's giving more exposure to the post that you disagree with because you chose to troll it.
Yep. And so you're not hitting the share button, so to speak, but you're actually probably getting more exposure on that content by not hitting the share button and commenting on it instead. But two, you look like a jerk to all of the people in your network, because they're seeing what you're commenting. Now, it's not not every single person in your network is seeing every comment you leave, but there's no, I don't have any data around specifically how the algorithm does it, but I know that I'll leave comments on things, and there are some times where my comment itself will have more likes than the post does, because I have a strong LinkedIn network. And so, I've looked and seen that my comment alone has 16 likes or, something like that crazy, because, just because I've got, a lot of people that are following me on the platform.
Good or bad visibility, I don't think a lot of people think through. I leave a comment. Where does this go? How does it show up in my network's feed? And so thinking about that from visibility you want and visibility that you don't want, I think is a point where people are missing. So I'm glad we're talking about this.
Yeah. And so I think what we've already talked about is super valuable. I think people understanding that when you comment, it gives you additional visibility. Obviously you want good visibility, not the bad kind. So stop being a jerk on LinkedIn. But, and that doesn't mean that you can't disagree with things. I'm not saying you can't disagree with somebody's point of view. Exactly. Do it in a tasteful way. Like it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out how to say that to push back on someone's opinion or to challenge someone without being a jerk about it. It feels weird to even feel like I need to say this, but I've seen so many jerks on LinkedIn. It needs to be communicated. But the other piece of this, and something that I've been seeing a lot, not a lot, I've been seeing it enough for me to want to address it, because people are starting to understand that you can get visibility by leaving comments. People are leaving thoughtless comments. They're not malicious. They're not mean. They're just, it's a comment that a bot could leave. Things like, great post.
Thanks for sharing.
Thanks for sharing. This is awesome. And so I read an article by Josh Steinle, actually. His blog is joshsteinle.com. And he wrote an article where he basically said, if you can copy and paste your comment on 100 other status updates, then you should probably put more thought into the comment. So the way I say it is, the way I say it is, if a bot could leave your comment, then you should probably think a little bit more critically about what that comment should be, because you don't. Sure, you're getting visibility, but if all of if your entire network is just seeing you post things like great post, or this is great, or, keep sharing, I don't know. I feel like they're just going to associate with you with being somebody that isn't as thoughtful as the person that's leaving an actual thoughtful comment that means something, right. Or they're going to think that you do actually have a bot automating it. And that just doesn't strike me as a good look.
Right.
So putting more thought into your comments is something you should do. So Logan and I, before we started recording, we came up with 4 frameworks, 4 ideas to help you leave better comments on people's content, so that you don't have to put great post, but you can also capitalize on the visibility. So Logan, the first one that we talked about is mentioning someone in the content that would have some insights to share about it. So right. We've got one of our co-hosts of this show, Rex Biberston. He's big on sales enablement, sales methodology. So if I see a post that I think, oh man, like Rex would absolutely have something to share here, I can tag Rex and say, I really think Rex would have a lot to add here. Well, you think about that statement. I don't actually have to be an expert on sales enablement, because all I'm doing is thoughtfully bringing in someone from my network to comment on it. I'm not forcing myself to comment on it. It still makes me look thoughtful, because I didn't just tag a random person. I actually tagged someone that had something to say.
And like you were saying offline, James, you didn't spam tag about 14 people, which, just annoys people. And like you said, makes you look pretty thoughtless. And the thing I love about this in being a specific strategy is it goes back to, social media being social. If you were at an event or a conference and someone brought up something that you weren't an expert in, but you thought of someone in your network that you should introduce them to, or maybe someone else that was at that conference, you might say, oh, hey, you need to go track down so-and-so. They know something about that. You would naturally do that in a conversation, yet a lot of people don't think about, hey, we're just having conversations with other humans here on LinkedIn. Let's just be social.
Yep. No, that is such a good point, man. We're mirroring how we would interact with someone at a conference or at a trade show or at a, whatever. That's all social media is mirroring what you would do in person, which is why the social selling tactic, I wouldn't even call it social selling, because when you just spam a bunch of people with your offer, you always hear people say well, you wouldn't do this in real life. What makes you think it's okay to do it on the internet? Mm-hmm. And it's the same way with engagement on LinkedIn. If someone has something thoughtful to share and you want to capitalize on the visibility that is available to you by leaving a comment, do it thoughtfully and do it in a way that you would do it in real life. And so you're exactly right. That's a fantastic way to phrase that. So mentioning someone, not 14 people, mention one person. This actually makes it way easier for you. You just have to think for a minute about who would have something to say here? It also has the side benefit of deepening the relationship that you have with that person that you're mentioning. Because if you only mention one person, that person is going to feel called out and special that you thought of them whenever you read this content. And so maybe you just had a conversation with a prospect earlier in the morning about something, and you see a post on LinkedIn later that afternoon about that same thing. You can actually mention that prospect if you're connected with them. I think you can even do it with second degree connections. You can mention them in the comment and say, hey, Frank, I know we were talking about this morning, thought this was really interesting. And it deepens the relationship with that person. You could even say, like, I know you had some really incredible thoughts around this. Would love to hear you elaborate on it more here, or something along those lines. That is a super thoughtful comment that didn't take you more than 2 minutes to do.
Right. If that.
It deepened the relationship with the prospect, or, it doesn't have to be a prospect. It could be, anybody in your network. But just a different way to think about it. So mentioning someone is one way to do that. The second way to do it is to ask the author to elaborate on a certain point of the post. And so whether that means asking them to expand there's a lot of lists posts happening on LinkedIn. So if someone mentions, if they say, hey, here are 4 strategies we've been using to prospect on LinkedIn or do whatever, you can say, hey, curious about that third point that you make. Is there a particular tool you're using that's enabling you to do that? That's a very quick comment, and you're inciting engagement for the author of the post, which is ultimately going to help their post perform better, because the more that author engages with their commenters, the more reach that post is going to have.
Right.
But it's also allowing you to actually create dialogue, being, again, back to your point of acting like you would in real life, starting a conversation within the comment thread of that post with the person that authored the post there's not a lot of downside to that.
There's a lot of good points there, James. I had a post, from this morning where I shared a video on a tool that I use that integrates LinkedIn and HubSpot. And there was actually a really thoughtful post from someone outside of my first degree network that asked, okay, when you do this, what happens? And so it happened to be a real tactical post. So those could be really easy to engage with on, hey, can you explain exactly what you meant in step 2 or something like that? So those could be, ones to keep your eye out for, where you could use this tactic of asking the author to explain or elaborate a little bit.
Mm-hmm, totally. All right. So I'll let you, Logan, bring up this third one, which is another way to thoughtfully engage with content on LinkedIn.
Yeah. So again, this goes back to the idea of not needing to be an expert in what the post is about in order to add value to the conversation. So there was a post from Dylan Hay about, introverts versus extroverts in their approach to business and in sales and in marketing. And it was getting a ton of engagement. And, I brought up, hey, here's a TED talk on introverts that I thought was really, really interesting. And that started a conversation thread within my comment. Ended up getting a book recommendation myself, from Jason Croft out of that. And I just think that that's another way where you don't have to be an expert in what the author is talking about to leave something more engaging than great post. So, share a book, share a blog post, share a TED talk or a YouTube video or a podcast. Thank you.
Come on, yes. Man.
Come
you
on.
Sell these things now.
Share a podcast episode, any other resource that could help someone, whether it's the author or other people commenting, learn more about whatever that topic is. So it makes you, look thoughtful. You're bringing another resource to the table. You're adding value to the conversation, but it's not like you're leaving a book review either. You can even, kind of combine this one with the first one. And maybe if it's a book or something, you tag the author of that book. So you could combine number 1 and number 3 that we're sharing here in ways to engage in one fell swoop.
Yep. Totally. I did that on a post the other day. We, with the author Bob Berg, he's been on our podcast in the past. So we're connected on LinkedIn, and someone wrote a post about how much they loved his book. And so I noticed that he wasn't tagged in the post. I thought, man, what author is not going to want to hear or see a post that's like raving about their book? And so I left a comment and said, "Oh my gosh, you're so right. This book was fantastic. Bob Berg is a rock star." And I tagged Bob Berg in the post. And so because of that, he saw it. He obviously replied to my comment, but then he went and left another comment saying, "Oh yeah, I'm so glad you love the book." And he ended up engaging, with a bunch of other commenters, if I'm remembering right. So, that one little tag was a way to like comment on the fact that I'd read the book, I'd interviewed him on our show, and by tagging him personally, it looped him in. But I love the idea of, even if you don't know the author or you don't want to tag a person, like we said in that first one, bringing up a resource tied back to the post itself, I think is super smart. And if you're already in the rhythm of, if you're reading a lot, you're listening to a lot of podcasts, you're taking in a lot of content, this one is a slam dunk, because it's really easy for me to point back to
pretty naturally.
Yeah, super naturally. This fourth one, we both actually came up with this idea as we were kind of brainstorming, came up with it at the same time. So Logan, I'll let you run with this fourth and final way to thoughtfully engage on LinkedIn.
Yeah. So I've done this. I've seen you do it as well. And it is, I think, a super easy way to leave something more thoughtful. And so what we've done a lot of times is copy a section of the post, maybe a line or a little snippet or something that's quotable from the post, and just say something about that. And one, it reiterates that to the author, this is something that I got value out of. And two, just mentally, it's a little bit easier to come up with a thoughtful comment about one section of the post versus the entire post itself. And so back to your point of how can we kind of dip our toe in the water? How can you get a little bit more traction with a little bit more effort on your engagement? I think this is a really easy way to do that, because you kind of scan for, honestly, I've had times where, I didn't get to read a full post, but there was a section in the first half of it that really did resonate with me. I copied and pasted that, put it in quotes and said, this is pure gold. I was just thinking about this because of XYZ or something along those lines. And so again, it can be something pretty quick that doesn't take you more than a minute or two, but gives you an avenue to engage with the post that shows that you put some thought into it. A bot can't do that. I love your post. And just think about wasting and not be a bot.
Yeah, exactly. And going back to your point of you saying, what we're doing on social mirrors what we would do in real life. Think about if you and I are having a conversation and you're telling me a story, and when I go to respond and either add to or dig in deeper to your story, when I reference something that you said in your story, and I say, man, you mentioned that part about the thing your wife said to you, when you did this thing or whatever. When I do that, it communicates to you that I was listening and that I was engaged while you were talking. So that gives you a great impression of our engagement by doing that subtle little thing, by calling back to something you said, proves that I listened. With this, it's even easier because it's literally right in front of you. You don't even have to actively listen. You don't have to actively read. Like, just look at a line that stood out to you, call it out, and you're essentially affirming like, hey, your post has value. I paid attention to it because this is the part of it that really struck out to me, or like that stood out for me. And so again, it's like life mirroring, in the internet, this idea of what works in real life to thoughtfully engage with people works on LinkedIn as well. And so between these four things, mentioning someone that could add insight, asking the author to elaborate on a certain aspect of the post, bringing up a resource that's related to the post, a book, a blog post, a podcast episode, and then mentioning a specific sentence or a piece of the update, and then leaving an idea or a thought based on that, or just saying, man, I really love this part of your post. I think those are 4 really thoughtful ways to engage on LinkedIn in a way that doesn't make you look like a bot and actually helps you deepen relationships, both with the author of the content that you're commenting on, as well as the people that you end up engaging with inside of those comment threads. So right. Hope this is valuable to anyone listening. I wrote a LinkedIn post about this yesterday, but
go leave a thoughtful comment on that.
Yeah, right. So, because of the length, obviously you only get 1,300 characters. So I could not expound on all 4 of these. I only talked about 2 of these in the post. So this is super helpful for me. I think this is going to be really helpful for a lot of people. So feel free to reach out to both Logan and myself. We're both on Twitter. Obviously, we're on LinkedIn. Shoot us an email, logan@sweetfishmedia.com, james@sweetfishmedia.com. We love hearing from listeners and really excited to stay connected. Thanks again, Logan, for your time today, and stoked to do this again soon.
Another great chat, man.
There are lots of ways to build a community, and we've chosen to build the B2B growth community through this podcast. But because of the way podcasts work, it's really hard to engage with our listeners. And without engagement, it's tough to build a great community. So here's what we've decided to do. We're organizing small dinners across the country with our listeners and guests. No sales pitches, no agenda, just great conversations with like-minded people. We'll talk business, we'll talk family, we'll talk goals and dreams. We'll build friendships. So if you'd like to be a part of a B2B growth dinner in a city near you, go to b2bgrowthdinners.com. That's b2bgrowthdinners.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.